Hello. So what I want to talk about today is not important. Actually, so first of all, I'm going to need you all to stand up because we're all hungry and tired, and for like how many minutes? 7 minutes, I need you guys to stand up and kind of feel that energy, because these muscles in your legs, they're the biggest muscles, and if you sit down for so long, you're just going to be feeling tired and all that. So I'm Adriaan. I'm a bit smelly right now. I am a jumpy and I make weird games. And I wanted to talk about my games first, just so you know what they're about. I made this weird... What? It doesn't matter. There's nothing interesting happening there. I made this game. 2 people grab onto one phone and they dance together using the phone, and the phone basically instructs them how to dance. And the Dutch National Ballet helped me make choreography for the game. So that it has some actual artistic value. Some really interesting parts about this game, I guess, is that how I got the Dutch National Ballet to work for me, basically, is by calling them and asking them, do you want to work for me? That's it. So this is kind of a weird game. It takes people out of their normal game idea, and it makes them dance and move around. I really like that part about this game. So that's one game. Another game I worked on is Fingal. 2 people put down their hands on an iPad and they kind of intertwine their hands, and it's awkward and sweaty and nasty and intimate, and like you can feel the other person's hand. Like imagine the person standing right of you, that you would touch his hand. That would be so weird. And that's kind of the feeling that this game is about. It's also a very social thing, very intimate, and it's really about the relationship between you and the other people. That's kind of the super interesting thing I liked about my own game. Okay, so another game I made, which is also a local multiplayer game. 2 people put their thumb on a screen, or actually, it tells you, hey, you got to put your thumb on the screen. Then you put your thumb on the screen, and what happens is that you're stuck, because if you let go, you lose. Oh yeah, and by the way, there's going to be awkward conversation topics on the screen every 2-3 minutes, and they're weird, and they're super weird. So there's something to talk about. It's also a very social thing. You're suddenly like really stuck to each other, and you have to talk, and now there's all these bizarre, stupid topics on the screen that you have to talk about because there's nothing else that's the game is presenting you with. So these are some interesting, weird little games. Anyway, this is what I made. And today I wanted to talk about one thing, actually. And it's going to be kind of a short talk, also because in 4 minutes you're officially lunching.
You're lunching when you're finished.
Oh, yeah. So that's in 4 minutes and 16 seconds. So this talk is called It's Not About Local Multiplayer. That's a bit weird for a local multiplayer conference. Well, why not? So the thing that local multiplayer means is, and that's kind of the common denominator. No, you can't sit. But by the way, if you feel like you're kind of tired, you gotta wiggle a bit and do things that make you energetic again. It actually really works, and don't be ashamed to do it. Like seriously, guys, you're all standing still. Yeah, like that, exactly. It really helps. Anyway, what I want to talk about is the common denominator for local multiplayer games is that you're together and that you're playing a game. But what I think is very valuable to you, and I guess that's why I'm standing here, talking about some silly games I made, is that I found that a focus on this common denominator is wrong. Everyone is making fun local multiplayer platform games, or tap on that phone earlier than the other person, or board games that are more convenient because there's no stupid cards or boards that you have to get and buy and physically keep in your closet, or games that require so much hardware that that you can only build one, or you'll spend like another 2-3 months salary on figuring out how to make another one. But I'd like to talk about something else, something that local multiplayer, the name, doesn't really say, which is what makes it so beautiful and what is so much more inspiring than the games themselves. At least that's how I see it. So what is it that we are here about? And Glitchsnap tried to touch the subject. Zuraida touched the subject. It's a very difficult to explain blob, and there's like words like playfulness or sharing or exploring or relationships. That's kind of the blob and the space we're working in. So let's start about playing together. Like, playing together is more fun than playing by yourself. I guess I really have to say this right now, and I guess all of us know this. But if you play together with other people on the streets or wherever, other people become very inspiring. They become like a motivator. It becomes like a really beautiful thing because of that. That experience alone is much more, I think, much more inspiring to me than other local multiplayer games, which is a weird thing to say, I guess, but I'm trying to get somewhere. Another thing is sharing things, not in a marketing way. Sharing the we, how Bernie de Koven would call it. We. Sometimes we feel that, right? If we're playing games with other people, it's like, holy shit, something's happening, exciting. And I guess that's very inspiring, that moment. Holy shit. And there's a lot of local multiplayer games here that can do that. But more often than not, they don't really start with that. They start with, platformers or board games or those kinds of things. So sharing experiences is something. Sharing emotions is something very inspiring and interesting. Exploring relationships. How confident do you feel with your friends? And can you make that relationship maybe better? Like, can you be more intimate with your friends? Can you figure out whether your date digs you or not? Like, that's the kind of stuff that's super interesting and very inspiring. You can make games about that. Or you can make games about sharing the bro love. I sort of see two ways of coming up with games in general, but also with local multiplayer games. You can start with a prototype, a mechanic, kind of sort of setup, maybe, especially for local multiplayer games. You put 4 people behind a computer and you all give them a controller, and that's kind of where you would start. Like, okay, I want to make a local multiplayer game. We start with this setup. This is how a lot of people do it. And they take existing game mechanics, and they're inspired by other games, also by feelings that you've seen, or kind of games that have proven that something is possible. This comes very natural. I've done this a lot. A lot of things turn out to be a lot of fun. But is it special? Is it kind of based on those interesting, sharing things, playing together? Is it really based on that? In my experience, most of the times it's not really, and I am bored by it. And it sucks, and I hate to say it, but there's just a lot of local multiplayer games that are super fun to play, but the emotions that are being explored are just not as interesting as I want them to be. Most of the times they're about this super vague, competitive, or a very abstract cooperative thing, but they're not about flirting, or they're not about dancing, or they're not about, it's those things that I try to make games out of, that in which there's so many emotions that you can grab. They're so interesting, but not a lot of people are doing that, and I think that sucks. And maybe you don't want to hear this because you're making games like that, but that's fine. It's just maybe not for me. So the other way to make a game is to start with a vision, and find those visions is super difficult. But those visions can be inspired by real life, by, I guess, playing folk games, or trying to reflect on what playing means, or what your relationship to another person is at any time or moment. It can be inspired by emotions, the things I was talking about earlier. And this is by far the hardest part. And I really, 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 really hope that we're going to get there all together. Because we're all in this together, this local multiplayer thing. So let's just try to make something out of it. Thank you.